Hello everyone, and welcome to part 8 of What If the Constructicons Were in Transformers Prime. And without further ado, let's get right to it. So the episode Legacy goes like this. So the whole false beacon set up by Megatron and Soundwave goes the same. This team responds to it. Then in time, Ratchet picks up another signal and sends the build team to that signal. So the build team arrives at the Star Saber site, where they look and see a sword. And obviously, this isn't Smokescreen. Smokescreen knew what the Star Saber was, but the build team doesn't because they were created on Earth. So I'd say what the build team do is that they actually still do run in guns blazing just like how Smokescreen did in canon. And Wedge runs to it with his team giving him cover and tries to lift it, but is then shot down by Viacons. Megatron then says, "Bring them to me." And the Constructicons bring the build team all restrained. Megatron says, "What is this relic?" Wedge kinda says the same thing as Smokescreen did in canon. "Why? Who wants to know?" And Megatron almost lashes out, but they then see Wheeljack, Bumblebee, and RC coming in. And Megatron's like, "Where's Optimus?" And Optimus, just like in canon, heads for the Star Saber. And there isn't no Nemesis, so it's not up in the air. But the Constructicons combine into Devastator to block Optimus. But Optimus transforms, jumps over Devastator, and lands his hand grabbing the Star Saber. The Star Saber then activates, with all the Decepticons literally retreating. They go up the mountain, where Megatron then orders the Constructicons to drop the mountain on him. They all activate some sort of drills, knocking down the mountain on top of Optimus. Then, just like in canon, we see him slice up that whole mountain. And then, this happens. Optimus looks up at them, runs, and throws the energy of the Star Saber at the hill that they're on, launching the Constructicons and Megatron away. They land a little far away. Megatron gets up. "We Decepticons now face our darkest hour." Then they return to base, and the build team is pretty amazed at the sword's capabilities. And they ask, "What is this thing?" And that's where Optimus says, "The Star Saber, a legendary weapon forged by Solus Prime." A few moments later, the Star Saber starts to glow. And that's when we get the message of Alpha Trion to Optimus. Now we get to episode Alpha Omega. And this episode goes like this. So we start off directly from where we left off, obviously in the last episode, where Optimus received the message from Alpha Trion. He then informs his team that they must search for all 4 Omega keys to the restoration of their home planet. The build team is pretty stoked. They've never seen Cybertron. They're like, we finally get to see where our ancestors come from. Megatron and Dreadwing still head to Cybertron and retrieve Liege Maximo's arm, as well as Megatron making the Dark Star Saber. That all goes the same. RC and Wedge are the first to go for this Omega key. And this is how it would go. So they show up, and Megatron still uses the Dark Star Saber, and instead of Smokescreen, obviously, he hits Wedge into the pyramid thing. And now you all are probably wondering, how would Wedge survive that? There's no phase shifter. Well, he is a construction vehicle, and they do have pretty good endurance on things. And he did have some synthetic energon planted into him when he was brought online, so that gave him the edge to survive. But just like in canon, RC thought he died, tells RC to deliver Optimus the message. If he wants the Omega key, he must come and claim it himself. Yada yada yada. They get back. The build team react to Wedge's supposed death, and they're really disappointed because he was pretty much the youngest out of all of them. Optimus decides to go to confront Megatron. The build team wants to go with him, but just like in canon, he doesn't want to lose more Autobots. They've already lost 3 Autobots. He doesn't want to risk more lives. So yeah, they go. Megatron and Optimus have their confrontation with the Dark Starsaber and the Starsaber. And then Wedge pops out of nowhere with the Omega Key. And that whole thing happens with Wedge there. They return to base with 1 Omega Key. The episode Hard Knocks plays exactly like this. Hightower, Heavy Load, and Wheeljack go to retrieve an Omega Key, with Knockout and Scrapper being there, with Scrapper wielding the phase shifter. With the outcome of this battle going the same, the Decepticons get their hands on this Omega Key. Let's just say the Autobots open fire on Scrapper, but he obviously has a phase shifter and all the shots go through him. Knockout then makes a run to the Omega Key with Wheeljack in pursuit of him. Knockout snatches it. Scrapper rushes at Wheeljack, tackling him. Then a ground bridge is open. Knockout transforms and drives through. And Scrapper runs through with the other 3 Autobots close behind, but the ground bridge closes is too late. Scrapper and Knockout report to Megatron about this supposed copied relic. Scrapper then volunteers to do research on it, and in time, he finds out what they're used for. Now, Wedge, Bumblebee, Lifter, and Grid encounter Dreadwing and the rest of the Constructicons. There's a big fight. Wedge heads for the Omega Key, but he is then rushed from behind by Hook, using Red Energon. He's then awoken by the rest of the Autobots, who are like, what happened? And he was like, I don't know. I was rushed from behind. And then the Autobots think that the cons must have had backup here. The ground bridge opens up and Wedge is like, I promise Prime I'd return with the Omega Key. Lifter and Grid are pretty disappointed too, but Bumblebee says, look, Optimus says we need all 4 Omega Keys to revive Cybertron, and then that we just need to hang on to the 1 key that we have and find a way to get the other 2 back from Megatron. Hook, hearing this, immediately super speeds back to comm base. Hook immediately reports back to Megatron and Scrapper. Hook explains what these Omega Keys are used for. Megatron then says, we must find the final Omega Key. Soundwave then walks up to him, scanning and scanning, but there's no energy signal on Earth that matches these Omega Keys, meaning that the final Omega Key could not be on Earth. Megatron then comes up with a conclusion. Then we must depart for Cybertron. He then orders the Constructicons to prepare their ship. Them, along with him, Dreadwing, a few Viacons will head to Cybertron to search for the final Omega Key. And he will also attempt to locate the Omega Lock. Once they reach Cybertron, he wants them to activate a ground bridge for Soundwave and the remaining Viacons and Insecticons on Earth to all return to Cybertron. The Decepticons then begin to prepare. Back at the Autobot base, Team Prime then comes up with the same conclusion. The final Omega Key must be on Cybertron. But RC says, how will we get back to Cybertron? And that is where Wheeljack says, we could use my ship. The Autobots think that's a great idea, but Optimus saying his ship cannot carry all of them. So Agent Fowler makes a few calls, and they lend them a rocket ship. And the build team are assigned to combine it with Wheeljack's ship, which could then carry them all back to Cybertron. And yes, I can envision this with something like Dark of the Moon, where the Autobots were exiled, but they're obviously not exiled here. They're leaving to Cybertron to look for the final Omega Key and possibly the Omega Lock. The Autobots say their goodbye to the humans. A goodbye for now, at least. They load up everything that they have, and they depart for Cybertron. Meanwhile, the Constructicons ship arrives on Cybertron, and out steps Megatron and his Decepticons. And that's where I'm going to leave it off here, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoyed part 8. I'll see y'all in part 9.